So last time I left off, I was talking about my attorney offered me a deal, or the prosecutor. But if I didn't take the deal, they would, proceed on the death penalty or life without. So I took a 10 to life, which means I would have to do 10 years before I even see the parole board. So altogether, I ended up doing 14 years. I got a 2 year dump, went back and see them, and they gave me another 2 year dump. After that, they let me out. So yeah, it was long, to me it was a long stretch, and that there's a lot of other people out there that have done more time than I have. But anybody that does time, man, my heart's out to you, because I mean it's hard, it's tough. But roll the tape back, 1989. I don't know who knows who Judas Priest is. So I was fighting my case the same time they were, um, and if we go back a little bit further, 1986 is when my dad passed away, and I didn't take that very well. There's another video I did way back when, kind of explaining that. I don't like really talking that too much, just because get too emotional. Um, but back in 1986, and you're doing the things that you're doing, and I was go fast all the time, and of course, to support your habit, I was making runs to Modesto, California, picking up large quantities, and that's how I was able to do what I was doing. And I did that for a while. But back then, if somebody got pulled over in a park and got arrested, they got arrested. You know, but as time went by, before you know it, hey, look, we won't take you to jail. Just tell us who you got it from. And that's when they came out with confidential informants. And so uh, it wasn't so easy to do. You're constantly hearing helicopters. Those who know. Uh, when you're on that stuff, you hear keys, you hear sirens, you hear helicopters. You're constantly looking at your window. Yeah, you're paranoid. And from 1986 until 1989, that was my life. There is a co-defendant involved in this also. Really, really piece of shit. Uh, Not knowing he'd already been in prison 3 prior times before I even met him, which I didn't even know. Hell, I thought he worked freaking in a hospital, because the dude always wore scrubs. And he said he worked at a hospital. Well, he worked at a warehouse, and I guess they wore scrubs or something. But anyways, that was my co-defendant. Get into that a little bit later, because there's a long story with that. Um, but you know, I take full responsibility for my actions. I remember my sister would come see me. Say, Sean, we want to help you. And man, I felt so ashamed for what I was in there for, that I just refused help from my family. I didn't want them. I pushed them away. And if I had, maybe I would have had a better attorney. But today, I would say if I didn't go through what I went through, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I'm very grateful that I had to go through what I had to go through. Um, Unfortunately, I'm not grateful for the things that happen. Um, my sister, she had a boyfriend that was, a dealer, and that's where I kind of got the idea from. But as I told you, confidential informants, when those started happening, that's when he just got out. Um, and I had met these 2 prior people. Well, the one who introduced me to my crime partner. But when I ran into him, I'm like, man, where have you been? He goes, oh, dude, I was in prison. I'm like, what? And so I gave him my beeper number. I said, if you ever need anything, you call me, because I have it all. And so he goes, hey, well, I want you to meet my friend. And that's when I met my co-defendant. And you know, as time went by, you know, I was at the time just that, but I was doing the worst of the worst at that time. I was, mainlining it. That's what my co-defendant taught me. But that's when it just became a downward spiral bad. And but those two had planned to rob my sister's boyfriend when they got out. Well, when I ran into them, gave them what they needed, which I didn't know until later on in court, is that he said, "Hey, that kid that you just met, his sister is the dude's girlfriend." So they kind of befriended me to get information, and when you're all freaking, freaking looped out, spun out, and people are asking you questions, you just don't freaking realize, like, man, what do they ask me questions like that for? You know, or why are they asking that question? You're just blah, 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 talking a million miles an hour. But anyways, that's who, um, that's what happened. My sister's boyfriend. Anyways, that was a hard one to deal with. And anyways, this story is just freaking crazy telling it. Um, but anyways, my co-defendant right now is still in prison. He'll never get out. He had an opportunity, but I'll get into that. But he ended up doing something else to somebody else. So really, really piece of bad work. When I was young, I got in trouble, my dad always told me, keep your mouth shut. Don't ever say anything, period. No matter what they say, keep your mouth shut because you'll get in less trouble. And so when all this stuff happened, I kept my mouth shut, didn't say anything. I wasn't there, didn't da da da. Well, my co-defendant was singing a different story. I was the bad person. I'm the one that did everything. And he was scared, it was the opposite. Anyways, it was the opposite. The dude was way much older than me. Yeah, been prison 3 prior times. But, going to prison, I know me talk and tell my story, and I'd go to these group homes and tell my story. And it's kind of rewarding to be able to help these people. But these other people that are in prison, they got to realize it's not over with. Get your life together in there. Because if you don't change in there, you're not going to freaking change out here. You're going to be the same person. You're going to come out and struggle. But if you get a handle on it in there, coming out and making that transition is that much easier. And my transition, coming out in 2003 was not easy. Being a felon, trying to get a freaking job, no, we don't hire felons. No, we don't hire felons. Or you put down and they'd ask you questions like, can you tell me what happened? Or, they just don't hire you. And so I'd have 20 doors shut in my face, but I just needed that one door to open. And sooner or later I got that door open. But, and still to this day, even though it's been 23 years, it still lingers. It still causes problems in my life. But, life is not over. And people that are doing it now, they need to realize that they should have been listening to those group, school functions, when they have someone come in and talk and say, hey, if you're doing marijuana, this is what's going to happen. It's a gateway drug or da 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 da. I never listened, man. I was freaking probably already looped up. Me and my friends were just laughing, playing around, never even paying attention. Well, pay attention to those people that are trying to help you because it can save your life. But yeah, my story is really crazy, with what happened to my dad, my sister's boyfriend, and of course my crime partner, and of course all the crazy stuff that happened in prison. Like the same stuff I was doing in prison, or before prison, I would make runs to Modesto, California, and bring back big quantities of something, and that's what I would freaking do. And so, I was told before I even went to prison, like getting kind of schooled, hey, when you go there, there's going to be these 2 big dudes that are going to beat you up and they're going to heart check you and da da da. Well, that didn't happen to me. When I went in there, I was like a freaking celebrity because everybody that I didn't see again because, they got arrested, they got busted and was sent to prison. And so when I went there, they were all there. And, their thing is, hey, you still have connections. This is how we can do it. And so, yeah, it just didn't stop. And that mad cycle continued. And I'll get more into that. But just imagine, I have to get into that a little bit later because this video is about ready to end. But I'll do another video tomorrow. But peace.